Hello and welcome to the People's Court. I'm Chris, joined by my lovely friend Adam up there in Washington. How's it up there in Washington, Adam?
Wet and dark, the way we like it.
That's right. Listen, this is the People's Court. Remember to check out our blog, http://thepeoplescourt.fm, and hit us up on Twitter at PeoplesCourtFM. We are participating once again in a fantasy basketball league. The People's Court crew, Lamont, Adam, and myself, plus 7 of our other friends, and of course Adam's wife. That's a new one.
Making her debut this year.
There it is. And we had our draft, so we wanted to sit here and talk to you guys today about who so far has been a fantasy surprise and who has been a disappointment. Adam, where do you want to start on this?
I'm going to start with the bad news. I like to end on a... We're starting with the bad news. And the bad news is that the best player in the league, last year's best player in the league, was he the MVP last year? LeBron James.
No, Kevin Durant was the MVP.
But last year. But it was neck and neck. It's not even neck and neck this year. LeBron James is not performing very well. He went for, I think he had a big goose egg in his first game. It was just a horrible first game in Cleveland when they got beat by the Knicks. He had 8 turnovers and like 11 points, and that's not what we expect from King James. His performance lacked. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say the way scoring is set up in our league, where it's not about the statistical categories, but the amount of points you score. So, of course, rebounds, assists, points, all of those add up as positive points, while missed field goals, turnovers,
right.
Missed 3-point shots, missed free throws, all count as negative points. So LeBron, usually he's able to fill out the stat sheet pretty well and do about 20, 25 points a game.
Yep.
This season he's down around 16 or 17 like that. He's performing pretty poorly.
Very poorly. And that goose egg on the first night is not helping him at all. He bounced back the next night. But, it's been talked about, in his play, in his actual basketball play, we've seen him be passive. In that game against Utah in the second half, I think he had like 3 points or something like that. It's been a really, really disappointing start for LeBron as he adjusts to his new team in the Cavs. So he's been a huge fantasy disappointment.
Yeah, there was a lot of discussion prior to our draft about who was going to go first.
Yeah.
Would it be James or would it be Anthony Davis? And your cousin Kerry ended up taking Anthony Davis first. And it's looking like it's the right pick because Anthony Davis has been gangbusters the first week of the season, while LeBron, like you mentioned, has been a complete disappointment. I'm sure LeBron is going to turn it around, though.
Oh, he will. I don't think there's any question, but it was pretty surprising given how consistent he's been over the last 5 years. It's hard to believe that he would be this disappointing. Having 2 sub-20 games in the first 4 is a real shocker. Is a real shocker.
Absolutely. Who else you got as a disappointment?
So my number 1 draft pick and number 6 overall, Carmelo Anthony, has been a shocking disappointment. I mean, this guy's supposed to get buckets and get rebounds and be scoring in the 25-point range every night, and he hasn't even broken 20 fantasy points for me. He's got 19 twice, but he's scored in single digits 3 times for me, 8, 4, and 5 points, and he is just not shooting well. He's in fact against Detroit. He was 5 for 21 with no 3-pointers. He's having a really, really hard time adjusting to the triangle offense and to the new coach, Derek Fisher. And he's really struggling. And he's 30 years old this year, so it's he's on the wrong side of 30 now. So he's been a very, very disappointing starter.
2 things that really affect a player negatively in our league: poor 3-point shooting and turnovers, because those are really tough to overcome. And when you have a 5 or 21 outing, that's you could score 25 points for the game, if you get to the free throw line enough. But it's tough to overcome those poor shooting outings.
Yeah, because that's negative 16 points. You've already lost 16 points. So if you score,
you got to make those up somewhere else. And Carmelo's not the type of player that usually does.
No, he's not. And I think possibly more surprisingly pathetic than Carmelo has been a pick that you took in Goran Dragic.
Oh, man, you don't have to tell me about how disappointing Dragic has been. Fortunately, I took Isaiah Thomas in the later rounds, and Thomas has been a much better player so far than Dragic. But Dragic, you want to talk about not doing or performing up to expectations. I took him in the third round, and he's yet to crack 20 points, and he's scored in single digits in 3 out of the 5 games that he's played so far. The only two games that he had decent games, of course, against the Lakers.
Yeah. Luckily, they play them 4 times.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, they've already played them twice. He's only going to get 2 more of those games the rest of the season, so he can't really pad his stats against these cupcakes anymore because he's already played them twice.
Yeah.
He's got to find a way to produce against other teams. He just hasn't done it yet. The attacking style that they played last season favored him a lot, and the fact that Eric Bledsoe was hurt for a great deal of games helped him out a lot last season. But with Bledsoe back in the fold and Isaiah Thomas rounding out that 3-guard rotation, Dragic has been the odd man out, which is surprising. I expected him to be really good this year.
Yeah, especially coming off of the All-NBA season he had last year.
Absolutely.
Well, and to add to the list of players getting a slow start is somebody who had an amazing year, and very much like Dragic, had an amazing year last year, and is not doing very well this year, Andre Drummond of the Detroit Pistons. Now, keep in mind, he's only 21, 22 years old, but he was a beast last year, putting up double-doubles like you wouldn't believe, and this year he's barely put up double-doubles at all, and it's not that his per-minute statistics are very good, which means to me that it's not necessarily about his performance. His performance is really, really good, but he can't stay on the court. He's been in foul trouble all season long. He cannot keep he is like a young gazelle. He can't keep his body under control. He basically, in the first game, in fact, his minutes have just not been where they need to be. He's only broken 30 minutes once in the first 4 games. And that's not good enough for a starter in this league, for somebody who's going to dominate fantasy points like he should, in my opinion. He's got to be on the court longer. Now, we knew Drummond was going to have problems with his free throws. There's no question about that. He's Ben Wallace-esque in the way he shoots free throws. But normally in the past he's been able to overcome that with blocks, dunks, and rebounds. But he can't do it because he's not on the court long enough. So a lot of slow starts from people we expected to do a lot better this season.
Yeah, when you're only playing 20 minutes a game as a starter,
and
your team isn't blowing other teams out, that's just unacceptable. You got to find ways to stay on the court, and right now he's just fouling too much. Yep. And as a consequence, he's hurting your team.
Yep.
Which I hope continues when we play each other. All right, let's get on to some better news, Adam. Who do you like so far? Who are the surprises of our fantasy league so far?
Well, thankfully, Andre Drummond's front court mate, Moose, Greg Monroe, has been doing a great job. I got him in the 9th round, much to your chagrin and your brother's chagrin.
It's my chagrin. I really wanted to pick him. When we got to the 9th round and he was still on the board, I was like, oh, yeah, he's going to fall. He's going to come to me. You stole him.
I did. I had done a number of mock drafts and seen him fall every time. He never. In fact, I think he didn't never get picked up before the 8th round, which I was surprised by because I was like, anytime you can get a starter after the 8th round, I'm just like, you have to take him. That's why I was also kind of surprised about Omer Ashik falling all the way to the 13th round in our draft. I basically thought he was going to be a free agent pickup until he got auto-drafted by one of the other teams. But Moose has got 27 and 34 in his first 2 games. He's a contracted year. He took a single-year qualifying offer from the Detroit Pistons, and he's playing. He's basically auditioning for 29 other teams, I think, at this point. Because I don't know how the Pistons can ever trade Josh Smith. I just don't see you get pennies on the dollar for that guy. So I think Greg Monroe wants out of Detroit, and he's auditioning for these other teams, and he's doing an amazing job of that.
Yeah, the only bad thing about his season thus far is that he was suspended early.
That's right. That's right.
You come out and show, like you said, he's auditioning. He's going to earn that contract whatever he can get.
Yeah, his 2-game suspension for a DUI was quite frustrating because I didn't realize he had it, and I was like, oh, well, all right, nothing I can do about that now.
Yeah. One of my surprises of the season thus far has been Derek, because that's a guy that I didn't even consider drafting.
Yeah.
Yet here he is, dropping 20 and 10s like nothing. He had one really poor game, but other than that, he's been pretty solid for Utah.
He has been solid, and I expected both he and his Utah Jazz teammate Gordon Hayward to have breakout years last year, and neither one of them did. So it's really great to see both of them doing so well this year. Because Favors was expected to be the elite guard after Al Jefferson and Paul Millsap left the Utah Jazz 2 years ago. He was really expected to step up and take their place, and clearly he was just a slow starter, as in an entire season slow starter. He's really stepped up and is eradicating that reputation he developed last season.
Well, he's doing the reverse Greg Monroe.
Yeah.
Greg Monroe is trying to play for that contract. Gordon Hayward got his max extension, so now he's trying to prove that he deserved it.
Absolutely. And, yeah, that's right. And so let's see. Brandon Knight is another guy who is really outperforming expectations. He used to play with the Pistons back in his days with Greg Monroe, and now he's down in Milwaukee, where you can get minutes basically if you know how to dribble a basketball. But he's really stepped up, and on a team full of young blood with a young coach, second-year coach Jason Kidd, after he left Brooklyn, over there in Milwaukee now. He's doing a great job of stepping up and getting the points he needs to do it, and doing it consistently, because he could get you 20 fantasy points last season, but he couldn't do it consistently. He'd get you 20, and then maybe he'd get you 10, and then he'd get you 3 on a night. It's his consistency that was really hard to stomach when you had Brandon Knight on your team. And this year he's not struggling with that, or at least out of the gate he's doing a much better job of being consistent.
Yeah, he's had, I think, 4 really good games thus far. And
yeah.
It's just a matter of whether or not he can keep that production up.
Yeah.
Keeping like Favors and these other surprises that we're talking about. I'm not as concerned about them keeping up their production. Like Greg Monroe, he's going to keep that production up. But a guy like Brandon Knight, who we've seen have a lot of ups and downs and kind of a slow start to his career,
yep.
He's maintaining his production if he can. He's not only looking like a fantasy basketball steal, but he's looking like the most improved player.
Yeah, that's very true. That is very true. I hadn't considered that, but he's definitely on the list if he can keep that up throughout the season. And again, 5 games sample is a pretty small sample to judge anybody.
Yeah, very small sample size, but hey, this is what we do early on in the season. We overreact to everything.
That's exactly right. So I'm going to go off. I'm going to add one more person to surprises that we didn't talk about.
Oh, sure.
Klay Thompson has been quite the surprise. I took him in the 3rd round, and I thought maybe I was taking him a little too high because he didn't have a very good first game, but then he blew up with his 40 points against the Lakers. And
the Lakers. Everybody's building up against the Lakers. He's a guy that I'm not sure if his output is sustainable. Because he was leading the league in scoring for a few games there, and he's not going to do that for the rest of the season.
Yes, he is. What are you talking about? He's absolutely going to maintain that pace. I don't know what you're talking about. You're crazy, Chris. That guy is so consistent, it's not even funny.
But I do expect that he's going to have a really good season on the court and for you in fantasy as well.
Yeah, the shooting guard in the NBA is definitely the shallowest talent pool, with James Harden being number 1, and then I don't know who's number 2 after that. It's Monte Ellis, Dwayne Wade. There's definitely a number 2 spot that Klay Thompson can step into, but he's looked improved. He's driving to the basket. He's passing the ball. Steve Kerr's going to bring a lot more sophistication to the offense than Mark Jackson did, and that's going to benefit all of Golden State, not just Klay Thompson. But it's Klay Thompson's time to shine, and I think he's going to do it.
I'm going to throw in another surprise as well, because this is a guy who didn't even get drafted. I picked him up off the waiver wire. But Tony Wroten is having a really good start to the season, while Michael Carter-Williams is he's out with some malady. I'm not exactly sure what he's out with and how long he'll be out for. But Tony Wroten is coming. He's struggling with his turnovers, which is bringing his overall value down a little bit. But he's leading the league in steals, I think. He's scoring, 20 points a game, getting about 8 assists and like 5 steals a game.
Yeah.
So despite the fact that he's also averaging 6 or 7 turnovers a game,
yeah,
he's making up for it in other areas. And here's a guy who, like I said, didn't get drafted. You wouldn't expect to produce at all.
Yeah.
And he's putting up 17, 18 fantasy points a night for me, which is absolutely needed since, as we mentioned already, Dragic has been a complete disappointment.
Yeah, he's been a real surprise. Nobody saw that coming at all, and his ability to get buckets has been really impressive. With 27 points in against that game in Orlando yesterday. So his maturity coming out and stepping up for a team that needs him, both your fantasy team and the Philadelphia 76ers, has been a really, really pleasant surprise.
I'm going to throw a curveball at you here at the last second, Adam. Let's see how you handle it.
I'm horrible at baseball, so I'll probably whiff.
It's a whiff. It's like a cool whiff. Who do you think made the best pick of the draft?
Oh, well, I think without a doubt, my cousin Kerry with the number 1 pick. I just think taking the Brown number 1 over LeBron was absolutely the best thing to do.
Really?
I think there's another couple of arguments that you could make with Tim Adkins drafting in the 10th spot, taking Kevin Durant in the 2nd round. Could be a really good choice because we have a keepers league, so that could pay dividends, 3-4 years down the road. And then the most irritating choice would also be Tim Adkins taking Nick Vucevic in, I want to say, the 4th round. It was just really frustrating to see him go off the board so quickly because I really wanted to take him. So those are my nominations. What's your opinion?
I really like Derek Favors going in the 5th round. Like that's again, he's one of our surprises, and getting that type of production out of a 5th round pick, you don't necessarily expect. He's giving 1st round pick production, and he was taken in the 5th round. So I really like that pick. And somebody took Jordan Hill really late, and he's been really good too, going for 20 points a night for the Lakers.
Yeah.
But somebody's got to get rebounds on that team. It might as well be him. Kobe's shooting a ton, so somebody's got to get up all those misses.
That was long.
Kobe's taking about 30 shots a game. So, and those 2 picks I think are really smart. You made a really good pick too, and we're going to talk about it again. Another one of our surprises, but Greg Monroe in the 9th round. That was a really good pick.
Yeah, that's been a huge pick.
You had the advantage. I shouldn't say advantage, but you did the research and you understood that he was falling to the middle rounds like that.
Yeah.
You waited. I waited too long. I wanted to take him the round before, but I felt like I needed a guard.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up taking somebody like Giannis.
Yeah. Oh,
and
yeah.
that didn't work out so well for me. I already dropped him. But I think those 3 picks, Favors,
yeah,
Monroe, both of those picks are really smart.
Well, thank you.
And Jordan Hill late also, but
Jordan Hill is a very
if Monroe keeps up his production, if he stays averaging 25 points, fantasy points per game, that's going to be the pick of the draft in the 9th round.
Yeah, that would, if he can, because right now he's averaging 1st, 2nd round picks production. If he can stay at 25 a game, I would be so shocked and pleased it wouldn't even be funny.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
you should be. All right, this has been the People's Court Fantasy Draft Update. Fantasy, what else? What have we done? Fantasy surprises and disappointments. We'll be back many more times this season, I think, with little clips like this to talk about the way the fantasy season is going. And I hope you enjoy it. Don't forget to check us out on the People's Court at People's Court FM on Twitter and the peoplescourt.fm on the web.